As far as individual wrestling matches go, the Royal Rumble's dramatic potential is unparalleled. The best ones are used not only to create boatloads of memorable moments and spots, but to tell stories within stories within stories, matches within matches, and of course set off multiple programs for the road to WrestleMania. It's about so much more than just crowning a #1 contender. In short, the Rumble is a storytelling monster, so it's only natural that the event itself has generated as many compelling backstage stories as it has in the ring. And with the 2020 Royal Rumble just a few days away, what better time than to run through some of the best ones? With that in mind, I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are the 10 most infamous WWE Royal Rumble backstage moments. Number 10, Sean Waltman's shady drug test from 1995. Sean Waltman is someone who has never been particularly shy about speaking about his habits away from the squared circle, and in 2005, speaking to Pro Wrestling Torch, he told one hell of a story about the night before the 95 Royal Rumble. It was him, it was Scott Hall, they were out on the town, and in his words, they were getting pilled up. Their thought process was that, well, the following night was a pay-per-view, there's so much going on, there's no chance in hell that WWE are gonna run drug tests on a Royal Rumble night. But guess what? Wrong! They arrived at the building only to find ominous drug testing signs plastered all over the place. So Waltman, he did a pretty evasive job. He was a sneaky little scamp. He evaded them for most of the night. At one point, Dave Hebner actually just conned him in to entering a room. There was the official with a little bottle for him to piss in, and Waltman was left sweating. So what did he do? He lied. He told him he was too nervous to urinate. Game over for Mr. Waltman, you might think. He's not able to do the test, surely that's an instant fail. But no, then came the twist. The official, this dodgy bugger, whoever the hell he was, said, "Give me $200 and I tell you what, mate, I'll piss for you." And in Waltman's own words, $200 has never left his wallet and gone into someone else's hands so quickly. Number 9, the USOS versus a fan from 2015. Speaking to the Chad Dukes versus the World show in 2015, the USOS ran down an incident in which they almost came to blows with a fan while they were trying to leave the arena after the 2015 Rumble. Now this is really weird. They were driving with Naomi, they were trying to leave the arena, but everything was clogged up. So a fan approaches their car, he's brandishing one of those padded Royal Rumble branded seats that you get if you pay, I don't know, $7 million to attend one of these events. But rather than looking for an autograph or a selfie, this fan walked up to the car, raised his chair, whacked the car, and then just ran away. Now the USOS, they were pissed. They were absolutely raging because it's a rental and they didn't have any insurance on it. They knew that a heavy bill was coming their way if the car was too badly damaged. So they got out, they looked for the guy, but he was nowhere to be seen. In their words, he had just jetted. And I tell you what, it's probably for the best that this guy actually did get away, because I can't imagine that having a couple of angry Samoans bearing down on you after you've just damaged the rental car would end particularly well. Chair or no chair. Number 8. That doesn't work for Mill, brother. 1997. Reportedly one of the most selfish wrestlers of all time, Mil Mascaras was a notorious backstage politician. Hulk Hogan is an apt comparison here because, like Hogan, Mil was a massive star. He played prominent roles in many movies and he was a tremendous performer as well. But by all accounts, he was also a bit of a dick. Mascaras was appearing in the 97 Royal Rumble as part of the working relationship between AAA, his home promotion, and the then WWF. But he decided that he didn't want to be eliminated. He didn't want anyone getting over on him. Even though, you know, it's the Royal Rumble and you don't really lose anything when you're thrown over the top rope, but I digress. So his solution was, well, he climbed up to the top rope and he just jumped out onto the other side. He landed on Pieroff, he was out of the match. It's one of the silliest eliminations in Rumble history, and now you know the story behind it. Number 7, Braun Strowman laughs it off in 2018. Remember the 2018 Royal Rumble event? Remember Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar versus Kane? Well, chances are that if you do, it's for the potato wings that went down. First of all, it was Braun accidentally kneeing Brock right in the head before Brock said, "Hey, that don't fly for me, brother," and cashing an immediately receipt by absolutely whacking Braun with a very real, very stiff right hand that would have probably caved a lesser man's skull in. Now, one might assume that this would lead to some kind of heated backstage confrontation between the two, maybe an argument, or maybe even worse, but nah, the guys apparently just laughed it off. I've got a direct quote here from Strowman, who spoke to TalkSport shortly after the event, and he said, "We're both very dominant males, and neither of us wanted to give an inch, so in the end, we took an inch from each other." Good on these guys for just shaking it off. It was beefy as hell though, wasn't it? Number 6, Dan Severn almost goes rogue in 1999. Dan Severn may not have had the WWE career he might have wanted, but the guy was a former NCAA Division I wrestler. He was 260 pounds. He was a former UFC super fight champion. He had a mixed martial arts record of 28-3-3 at the time of the 99 Royal Rumble. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that in a real life fight, he could have smashed almost anyone, maybe not Ken Shamrock, on that roster. Now, it's well known that Severn tried to quit WWE when the company asked that he tattoo 666 on his forehead and become an Undertaker disciple. But what isn't as well known is what Dan threatened to do when the company said no at first. Speaking to The Hannibal TV on YouTube in 2015, Severn said that when WWE said, "Nah mate, we're just gonna job you out until you agree," he said, "I'm gonna step into your world of fantasy and turn it into reality." Translation, Dan was gonna turn the Rumble into a shoot. "How many of your so-called stars am I gonna make look pretty darn silly?" he apparently told a road agent. He was gonna go in there and he was gonna bust everyone and their brother up until, like, I don't know, 30 dudes piled him and he had no choice but to relent. Severn even considered going to WCW's Eric Bischoff and saying, "Hey man, I'm gonna shoot on the Royal Rumble, I'm gonna ruin this pay-per-view." How much is that worth to you? But the good news is it never got that far. WWE, when they heard Severn's threats, they were like, "Nah, maybe that 666 tattoo isn't worth it after all." They relented, Dan played ball in the Rumble, and he got his release just a few months later. Number 5, the failed trial run of 1987. When Pat Patterson came up with the Royal Rumble concept, he had devised one of the most ingenious match types in wrestling history, but it almost didn't make it past the trial phase. When Pat initially told Vince McMahon about his idea for the Rumble, Vince's response was very simple. "Pat, that is stupid." Regardless, Patterson was able to convince the chairman to give it a go on a St. Louis house show. It was a drab, stripped-back affair with only just under 2,000 people in attendance and just 12 men in the Rumble itself. And unfortunately, it just didn't get over. The fans didn't respond to it. The response was one of complete apathy. And at that moment, Vince was like, "Well, guess I was right about this dumb idea." That moment may well have been the end of the Rumble before it even made it to a single TV show. But Vince was having a meeting with TV executive Dick Ebersol, whose opinion he valued greatly, in 1988 when the concept came up one more time. Vince was really desperate for ideas to jazz up his TV product, and at one point he looked over at Pat and said, "Pat, tell Dick your stupid idea." Well, Patterson told him that stupid idea and Ebersol loved it. He even called it a perfect idea for television. And thus, what would eventually become one of WWE's greatest creations was born. Number 4, Hulk Hogan throws a fit in 1992. You know the 92 Rumble? You know how it's one of the greatest Rumble matches ever? You know that bit just towards the end when Hulk Hogan threw a total strop at Sid Justice? Yeah, let's talk about that. According to Sid himself, Hogan's on-air flip-out turned into a real-life flip-out as soon as they headed backstage. Basically, Sid accused the Hulkster of behaving like a woman. Now, those are his words. He said Hogan was behaving like a woman. Here's another quote. "We get to the back dressing room and Hogan is screaming. He's screaming at Vince McMahon. He set this up. He made this happen." Basically, he was accusing the man who ruled the world of engineering his dodgy elimination. And Sid was like, "Hey man, screw this. I'm out. Sid claims that he went up to Vince and he said, hey man, listen, like this is pretty cool and all, I like the WWF, but I can't really work in an environment where the top star is going to flip out like this. He tried to resign. He was convinced to stick around until WrestleMania 8, but he was gone shortly after that. All thanks to Mr. Hogan. Number 3, CM Punk says goodbye in 2014. A broken man at the time of the 2014 Royal Rumble, CM Punk was labouring through his wrestling career's dying days. I mean, just go back and watch that Rumble performance, man. It's in everything from his dishevelled appearance to the grinning through the pain look on his face as he entered. And, to make matters worse, Kofi Kingston concussed him about halfway through the damn match with a botched move. It was a rough night for Punk. It was another tough night for the voice of the voiceless, and figuring he was pretty fed up with the company's creative direction, hearing he was going to lose to Triple H at WrestleMania, he decided to quit the very next night. It was the culmination of many things and frustrations, of course, and he wasn't really let go until June, famously on the day of his wedding. And we didn't know the full extent of his woes until that appearance on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast, and somehow it was worse than anyone knew. Number 2, Maven gets hammered accidentally. 2002. Tough Enough rookie Maven eliminated the legendary Undertaker from the 2002 Royal Rumble with one of the crispest dropkicks you'll ever see. It was a major scalp-taking moment. It was a classic elimination, but one that required a lot of preparation, and in a 2019 interview with Fightful, Maven told all about him and Taker and how they prepared for this. Basically, they had the post-match beatdown. Taker got his heat back by destroying Maven all over the place, and he wanted him to get good colour. So, as was practice, and as might still be practice, Taker said, hey man, here's a bunch of aspirin, take this, it'll thin your blood out, it'll make you bleed loads when the time comes. But there was just one problem. Maven was allergic to aspirin. So thank God then for Taker's quick thinking and quick drinking, because what did he substitute the aspirin with? Jack Daniels. Yes, Jack Daniels. The result was a hammered Maven somehow making it through his Rumble moment, his big career-defining moment, without screwing the whole thing up. And I've got some quotes from him here. He said, I'm out here and he's not feeling a thing because he's the Undertaker, and I'm 2 sheets to the wind. I'm shocked as hell that I actually hit the dropkick, but I'm glad I did. Drunk as a skunk for his career's biggest moment, it's a shame that the elimination couldn't catapult Maven to greater heights. Number 1, Teddy and Eric go home, 2005. We'll never see anything quite like the ending to the 2005 Royal Rumble ever again. I mean, think about it. Think about how slim the chances of John Cena and Batista both hitting the deck at the exact same time really are. And then think about how slim the chances of Vince McMahon somehow tearing both quads when he was entering the ring are as well. Put them together and you have a situation that really should be impossible. As you can imagine, this was chaos backstage, and referee Jimmy Corderas broke it down in an interview years later with the Fight Network, and he pinned the blame on Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long. Why? Because they took the rest of the night off. When the double elimination happened, the producers were scrambling, and they understandably decided that the best course of action was to get the Raw and SmackDown general managers out there, get them out there and have them sort this mess so that Vince didn't have to. But the problem was, Teddy and Eric, they figured their night's work was done, they thought their duties were over, and they both left the building. So Vince came out instead, and we all know what happened from there. He got a little bit too excited trying to enter the ring, he tore his quads, and this crazy scenario played out the way it did. But it could have all been avoided had Teddy and Eric just stuck around. So that's our list, but what do you guys think of these wild backstage stories, and can you think of any more? Let us know down in the comments section below. Once you've done that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. And once you've done that, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray if you want to tell me how wrong I am. Bye!